Oh, sure. I mean, accountants must belong to certain companies. None from F&B industries?
Should have some, I think.
Yeah, none. I see. Okay, I'm quite surprised. That's why maybe we didn't quite understand F&B industry, how it works. And I just thought I give a very brief response. I was just 2 days ago at this talking point, Channel News Asia. Together with me was this Wild Rocket, a restaurant within Emily Hangout, a hotel. Well, I mean, the guy was saying that his criteria for hiring local is very simple. As long as you have arms and legs, please come. He put out application, he put up an appointment, 0 that came. A lot of foreign workers apply. So I think hearing from him, I think given a 5% reduction now, and this is echoed by many other F&B, he has to, I think, by this coming July, surrender 2 staff. That means he's going to retrench 2 staff. And I think many of the F&B folks are facing the same. They had actually reached the max of their quota of 40%. So now it's 35. They had to minus another 5% more. So I think in an analogy of this, I understand it's no longer we are talking about a overweight, obese person trying to lose weight. We're talking about a rather thin and scrawny individual. And we say, hey, and it's actually surviving on a fluid meal. And they say, come, I think less even run your marathon rounds. And I think that unfortunately that didn't quite work out that way though.
Yeah, we need to be more broad-minded. We have an issue. I think the government is in a no-win situation. You try to bring in more foreign workers. Next moment, grassroots complain, we have too many foreign workers. So it becomes a very difficult balancing act. I would certainly want to look towards Japan, look towards Switzerland. You almost don't have foreign labor in Japan and Switzerland. They have thriving F&B business. So we need to be more creative, try to understand what are they doing right, rather than have the easy way out. I'm sure we say, well, we are not overweight. But if you stand on the weighing machine and then start looking at the BMI, you say, well, hang on, it's not that healthy. So I would certainly challenge the F&B industry, learn from Japan. Japan wages are very high, but you have Japanese who are proud to be waiters, waitresses. Similarly in Switzerland. So question, what are they doing right? Learn from them and be more open.
I suppose again to add on to it, to Victor's point, I think from a business standpoint, that's right. You know, it's always in the case of business bosses, I want to make as much money as possible. F&B scene, I suppose now is a reflection of what we're seeing throughout the region here. People have more money to spend, and they're spending it. Back to my story of, the region being able to still, despite the exchange rate translation, Sing dollar, they're still coming here. For instance, I live in the Tanjong Pagar area, and be it Tra Street, Keong Saik Street, Craig Road, etc. You see many restaurants opening up. I see some closed as well. What I see those closing is basically again how they manage their businesses itself. But what that shows really is the demand is out there. People are willing to spend, which is why you are seeing businesses willing to say, oh, they're closing up, maybe I can take over, for instance. So that's good. So what we're seeing right now is we are coming back to my original story. You are restructuring an environment where people have the money and the capacity to spend. Contractors may be complaining, but they can see with clear vision that there are plenty of jobs out there. I was just talking to another contractor friend. He's in carpentry. Last year when I had a chat with him, I already told him, look, your quota on foreign worker, your levy is going to increase. The only way out, send your whatever Bangladeshi worker for training, for upgrading, so they qualify for lower levy. But I have so many jobs out there, no time to send them out for training. I already told you what happened. Just spoke with him yesterday. Wow, I have to send my Bangladeshi worker for training because if not, $1,000 levy coming up, for instance. I say, send them because there's still plenty of jobs out there. You miss a few jobs now, delay a little bit of your contracts here and there. you still have contract to go through. I think this is where the story really is. The government can do so now because they can see that be it at the shipyard, you can see every other month the two big yards announcing contract wins. They are not short and they are not efficient, but they are going to be more penalized again. But they can see order coming through. So that's the picture I think we see now, that we will have orders and flows coming through. And what we will have to see basically is, as Prof say, you pay people a little bit more happier paid workers tends to be more productive as well. Obviously, our mindset must also change at the same time, because there are opportunities for money to be made here, which is why businesses continue to want to expand. One of the fairly popular kopitiam chain around here, he hangs around at all the MRT station because every stop, traffic flow. He wants to open his coffee shop there. I say, look, there are going to be a doubling in rail network. There will be more stations. You want to expand, right? Yeah, I want also. So basically, you can expand rather than put 10 workers per kopitiam. Cheng Hu says you do with 8, and they're going to pay you for how you're going to do it as well. So that's really what it all boils down to. Pay your existing worker better. You do a couple less. Do it with a process that has to be revamped, rechanged. I think a good place where you have seen that example at work is the new extension at Plaza Sing. Many of the outlets there, the way they deliver and the way they are conducting their business there, very different from the other F&Bs in other parts of Singapore as well.
I suppose when it comes to budget policies, right? Typically in most economies, you see slicing across at it's either those who benefit or who doesn't, or if not, you're slicing across where it is about shaping a certain behavior so that companies can motivate towards one, and therefore a certain deterrent so that companies do not do certain things. I think in here, the budget does do some balancing act to try to mobilize and motivate progressive companies to be productive. And I think businesses all embrace productivity in here and think they want to. Well, the only thing is this time around, the budget also not only just cut across between those who benefit and who doesn't and mobilize behavior, and it also cut across those who will survive and those who will actually closed. And I think that's explain why a lot of them are crying out loud. Just talk about F&B since we're on the topic, and he stays in Tanjong Pagar. I works in Tanjong Pagar. A few restaurants were there. One of it was an Italian restaurant, and I just went there, and it was actually a Hong Kong chef in a Conrad 5-star international hotel, and decided to come here. He set it up, and it's only just a few months. When I went there, he was telling me, he said he didn't know that it is so tough to operate here. I said, why is it so compared to Hong Kong? I said, he can't find workers, so as a consequence, he pays 7 days of rental across a week. He only operates for dinner. He can't do lunch. Or if he does lunch, he can't do dinner. And some of them actually, some of the other F&B outlets are telling us they had to sacrifice even weekends or 1 or 2 days of their rental because they can't find staff to work that 2 shifts that you need. So I guess it is not a normal circumstance where I think we are in an obese platoon in the military. Everyone has to actually shed some weight. I think somehow it has cut across where I think survival and closure. And I think that by itself is something we probably ought to actually empathize a little bit on this situation. And by itself, businesses who are actually on the brink of closure, there are very little thing that they could do on it. And I think that's where either one, we recognize the fact that, say, creative destruction, no choice, the fittest survive. Or if not, I think maybe the pace of restructuring or the pace of productivity can also somehow tie these guys across. Because most of these guys came to us and they actually tell us this. They said, I'm an SME. Throughout the last few decades of crisis, from OPEC oil crisis, financial crisis, Lehman Brothers crisis, SARS crisis, H1N1, they said, I survived. They said, but I can't be dying under the arms of a policy then. So I think to us, it's a curious point that I'm looking at. Not making a comment about what the budget is, but I was just saying that these are the reaction of the individuals.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think a lot of interest on the F&B sector. I think in everybody's mind, including myself, I just want to make sure that I don't pay more when next time I dine in a restaurant, isn't it? I think that's the bottom line. If you need to increase the wages of the employees, but will it be passed on to the consumer is a most important thing close to our heart, I think. Of course, the employer face their challenges. As consumer, we also want to have, not the cost passed down to us. But having said that, let's look at what are the schemes available now that the government is rolling out or in assistance to help the SME to tie through the difficult phases of having high business costs and having to increase their productivity. Maybe at this point in time, I should ask Motley from Spring to maybe elaborate a bit more on what are the available schemes now to help the SMEs.
I think it's nice to hear a lady's voice, right? Okay, maybe I'll just touch a little bit on the earlier question of, is this the right time to look at restructuring, to look at sustainable growth? Actually, this issue is not a current issue because I think the low productivity has been around for the last 10 years. Okay, so I think we got to recognize that the government just suddenly didn't wake up and says, hey, productivity is so low, let's raise it. Okay, I think, we got to have that in perspective. Second, really, at the end of the day, is the constraint on resources. We are really facing the constraint of resources. Okay, and can this increase go on? I think it's really, really questionable. You see, when I talk to businessmen, I see a lot of entrepreneurs. I talk to them as business bosses. Yes, they want more foreign talent, they want more foreign workers. But when I talk to them as friends, as citizens as a local in this country, they also feel, the heat of the constraint of resources. So I think we need to really, strike a balance. And the third, really, at the end of the day, is that I think this has been alluded with by our very esteemed speakers, is that other countries are not standing still. Okay, they are driving their innovation effort, they're driving their productivity effort, and I think, and with the shift of the nucleus to Asia, this is a good opportunity for us to really up our ante and be able to compete. I think we still cannot forget competitiveness while we talk about productivity. Okay, and competitiveness is not just here, it's really comparing in your region, you can be a very good F&B here, but are you better than the one in China? You may say it does not really affect here, but we are a very globalized economy. I think we got to accept that. Now on the government programs, we can really break it out into a few buckets. One, of course, productivity is really about top line, bottom line, and one really is to help you to be more efficient, more productive. So we have various capability programs. I think if you want to know what these are, essentially, you can go to our website, you can take a look. But they focus really to make you, it's like what Professor Sam said, you deliver more with less or deliver more with the same resources more efficiently. Okay, so programs like, our technology innovation, okay, programs like our capability upgrading, for your process and all that will help the company. The other aspect of it really is looking at the whole aspect of, in order to be productive, you need good people. It's really talent management, and Spring has I think Minister mentioned just now, how do we actually encourage and train our people so that they can become good resource for our SMEs? Okay, and the last aspect at the end of the day is, initiatives that will help you to look at your normal daily operations. So, for example, even things like your microloan, it helps you in your cash flow. Okay, so we have buckets of programs like that. Now, I think there's a lot of talk about F&B. Okay, Spring is the lead agency for F&B, so we are very familiar with the F&B sector. Yes, it's very painful, but I was looking at the statistics on F&B. Despite the tightening of labor that has actually started not recently, but along the years, if you compare 2012 to 2011 figures, there's a net increase of more than 1,000 new F&B outlets. And assume that each of them at least recruit 5, or 10. Is this sustainable? Okay, so I think new operators, existing operators, has to know that, has to understand the landscape, and really, has to take efforts, okay, to improve. And for existing players, we do see that there are some who might have expanded with the thinking that this foreign workers source would be a continuous source. Okay, so, and when that is being curtailed at a certain level, they are caught off guard. All right, and this is a reality, and we have initiatives to help them. For example, tapping on a part-time pool. We have a part-time pool program where we appoint providers to train this part-time pool and deploy them to the industry. Okay, and many of our F&B players, for example, don't have the mechanism to actually assimilate part-time pool, because you need to change your rostering process. Okay, because if you are used to full-time, when you do part-time slots of 3 hours, 4 hours, how do you roster? How do you meet emergency needs, peak hours and all that? So we also have systems to help them to adjust to that. Okay, so the government is putting in effort. All right, we hear the pain on the ground. Okay, believe me, we do. Within our capability initiative, that's where we are actually doing our best to help the companies. Thank you.
This is very assuring to listen to Motley. So there are a lot of programs out there. Please, you can trust the lady. She just said that. There's a lot of program out there. Please tap into that and to help your companies to be more productive. Okay, on the wage credit scheme, there are people who say that are we putting the cart in front of the horse? Why should we be so generous, giving out so much money to companies before they can prove that they are actually going to be more productive, right? And then why are you giving so much money to all companies if the intention is to really to help the SMEs? Why everybody? Maybe this is something that maybe Peter or Mr. Song or even Professor Sum can comment.
The way I look at the wage credit scheme, it's the government's focus on lower paid individuals. Hence, the cutoff is at $4,000. So what the government is saying is, it doesn't matter whether you're working for a large organization or a small organization, you still have lower paid individuals. Try to increase their salary, and the government will fund 40%. So basically, the government is trying to push up the lower wages workers in Singapore.
On the wage side itself, I suppose from an economic standpoint, because of this vow for foreign worker, Singapore's economy, which by all intents and purposes is a developed economy, wage share of GDP is still too low, mainly because of that. So this is really one way of saying, okay, we need high productivity to be sustained. However, we need essentially to